Yeah. Oh, go again. Hi everyone, this is Natalia on Luxury with Natalia, Yachting International Radio. Beautiful day today, and I've got a special guest here today on my show, and it's Damien Reid. Damien, how are you?
Hey, I'm all right. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are things in the world of motorsport right now? You are so busy, as I hear.
It's crazy right now. I mean, I'm in Dubai in the Middle East. So right now we're about to gear up for we've got Formula E, the electric series, kicking off next weekend in Riyadh. So I'm going to go up there in a few days' time, and then straight after that, the weekend after, it's the final round of F1 in Abu Dhabi. So it is, and then there's local motor racing because our season's just starting now. So it's massive.
Oh my goodness. So many things to do and so many people to see. And what's a day like in your life? I mean, it must be fascinating.
Oh, every day is different, but I mix a bit of like normal automotive material into doing motorsport. I do the TV commentary for F1 here. I write for newspapers and radios and things. So I've got a radio show that I'll do tomorrow in the studio in Dubai about various things. Then I'm off to Oman. I'm off to Muscat the day after tomorrow. Aston Martin's releasing an SUV.
Ooh.
And yeah, so this is they're doing it in various markets around. Instead of doing like one big global launch together, they're doing it in various markets and at the same time. So this one they're going to do down in Muscat in Oman. Some amazing roads around there. So I'm going to head down there. We'll do that, stay the night, drive the cars, and then I'm flying back to Dubai for about 3 hours, and then I go straight up to Riyadh, and we'll do Formula E on the weekend, and then I come back. I've got a few days here to try and knock up those stories. There's some really good angles coming out, especially out of Riyadh. And then it's full on into Abu Dhabi for the Formula One the following weekend. So, yeah, super busy right now. And then straight after that, I've got to go to New Zealand for 2 days to do a car launch, and then I'm coming back to do commentary again, but for a 24-hour kart race, which is bringing people from all around the world in to race karts here. And I heard that there's going to be some F1 drivers in the little go-karts here. And then I'm going home for holiday for Christmas.
So basically, there's no sleep in your life.
No, I mean we can do that in the hot weather when things are quiet here. But right now it's event season, it's motor racing season, it's car launch season, it's everything right now.
So this is your element, totally, and it's time to be reactive and get up to speed on everything that's going on. Amazing.
You say yes to everything and go for it, and everything doubles up. When it's event season in this part of the world because of the weather and the climate, everything happens at the same time. So last week we just finished the Dubai International Motorshow that was on for the last week, that finished on the weekend. So that was 5 days down there. Today they're doing the final setup, and I think it starts tomorrow. Is the air show that's kicking off out there? So everything happens at the same time, and you just got to try and be in every place at the same time.
Yeah, I went to the Dubai Air Show a couple of years back, and I really enjoyed it. It was my first visit to Dubai, in fact, and the Middle East. So I find that it's a fascinating place. Now, the way things work out there, and especially the access to luxury, is completely different to what we see in Europe or in Americas as well. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, I mean, it's fairly accessible to a lot of people. There just seems to be a lot of. I mean, people use this as a base also for whether it be for their yachts or their jets. A lot of them keep them based here for financial reasons, geographical reasons, whatever. And then at the moment, the weather is fantastic, so a lot of people are based here at this time of year, and it's fairly accessible to get hold of some nice toys.
Mm-hmm.
And then when summer kicks in, then it all switches back to Europe, and everyone goes back to Europe and takes all their stuff back there.
That's right. Like in London, you see all these supercars with number plates that you can't even read, and they just inundate the place. It's like a bit of a car show. Wow. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, it must be so expensive to bring the toys. I mean, we're talking about cars and sessions. actually, but
Yeah, the funny thing is though is that it's becoming so popular to do that, and yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not cheap. It's pricey. The commercial carriers are now starting to do package deals.
oh,
So Emirates Airlines and Etihad Airways are doing package deals in summer,
uh-huh.
business or first class seat up front. You can put your car in the cargo hold, and they'll fly they'll fly it over, so that you can meet the car when you're there. So it can either go across as a separate flight with the cargo, or they can actually put it into the hold of the plane and fly it on the passenger air flight, so
Wow.
that you all get clearance at the same time. And it's becoming more popular. People want to obviously take their cars with them, because when they see, the thing is, we have here, because we have summer is so hot and it goes for so long, then we have Ramadan, which is another month that on top of that, then we have the school holidays for summer. So it kind of goes into a go slow here for about three months, maybe even 4 months sometimes.
Yeah.
And so people go back to Europe, or they go to Canada or North America, or into, I go back to Australia for a month or so and enjoy cold, miserable weather in the middle of winter, but I love it. And so they base themselves then in these other parts, and so it makes sense to take the cars with them, and they can use that as their vehicle to get around. I know a lot of people who even if they don't take their car with them, they'll factor into their holiday budget to buy a car over there and then sell it before they come back.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, I mean, the show is called Luxury with Natalia, so I suppose that is one point of luxury that not everybody can have. And isn't it fascinating how, well, things are different in mentality-wise in different places, and what you can do or what you want to do. I mean, it might be more interesting to get a car down here. You never know. But no, they're very attached to their property, aren't they?
Yeah, very much so. And because the seasons are very different, when it comes to people who have cars that they want to use just for track days, and that's becoming a real big thing now, with the manufacturers at the exotic end are building cars that are just made for the track. So Aston Martin have the Valkyrie, Ferrari have their FXX program, where they look after the car and you just simply arrive and jump into it and do your drive and that sort of thing. And so what some of them are doing is that they bring those cars over here for winter, which is right now. It's 27 degrees. It's beautiful, much nicer than being in Northern Europe right now. And so they relocate everything here, and they use the Yas Marina circuit, or the Dubai Autodrome, or the Bahrain International Circuit. There's a new circuit in Riyadh. There's places that are opening up, and they use it for their track days here in the off season. They compete in motorsport here as well, as a way to keep their eye in for when they go back and race in more like the what they call the gentleman drivers classes of racing. So you're buying a Ferrari, you're buying a Porsche GT3, you're competing in a category that allows you to race at places like Spa and Le Mans and these sort of places, but you're not a full-time driver. You're just it's just a very nice hobby to do. So they'll do that between the months of, say, now, or October to March, before they go back to Europe and then compete in the full season during summer.
Wow. Okay. Well, I've only been dabbling a little bit in motorsport myself personally. I've driven a DB12. I think you saw the video on my social media. I was very excited about that, especially being on the French highway where there's police everywhere. And also on the Circuit Paul Ricard in Le Castellet.
Yeah, great circuit.
Yeah, right. So that was for the D1000 Tour. Don't know if you've done that or what your thoughts are on that.
No, I haven't done that, but I was there a few weeks ago. Actually, we did the launch of the Bentley Flying Spur in Monaco. So we stayed at Hotel de Paris, and then we drove up into the hills, into a place, a little chateau that we've stayed at once before. And then, sorry,
in Aix.
I can't remember where, to be honest with you. We were there literally just for lunch. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, I've been here before. I recognised the place straight away. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. The roads must have been really something for the Bentley.
Well, it actually was. I had my concerns to start with, because you know what the roads are like. They're narrow, they're tight and twisty. And that's all. It's a real big car, and I'm thinking, wow, okay, expect to see maybe some scrapes on rims and things like this. But the car actually handled it really well. It's a four-wheel steer, so it gets around corners much tighter. So on those hairpins and switchback corners, it actually did a much better job than I expected. So it was actually a good environment for it to test it out. And then of course, yeah, along the coastal areas where all the traffic is and everything else, you just put it in drive and just let it take care of itself.
My frustration was with the Ferrari Spider experience I had over a weekend a few years back when writing for a magazine about it. I mean, I was just sort of going, why am I in a Ferrari when I can't move anywhere? You know, it's just, and the speed bumps, it's really a challenge. There's a whole process in terms of how to go over them. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Well, you know, that's actually an interesting point, because the whole scene is changing so much now in terms of what you can do with a car and how you can enjoy a top-end luxury car or a supercar. Is that because, there's several factors. We've got a lot of traffic now. The policing is getting more sophisticated with radar and all that sort of thing. The way they can get you now, speed humps, roundabouts. Here, the number of cameras that have come in recent years, and I have to say it's probably a good thing, because when I first came here, there were guys doing crazy speeds on the desert roads.
Oh, wow.
But, so what's happening now is, if you've got that on one side of it, then you've got the other side of the equation of electrification and autonomous vehicles and all this sort of thing. So it's kind of splitting the industry into two areas, where you've got your daily commute is people just going, okay, well, I'll take an electric powered car to work and back, whether it be a Tesla or a BMW or the new Jaguar or something like that. But I'll keep my fun car for the weekend, and that's built for specific track days, or we'll go out and do something under a specific event. So it's kind of, the auto industry is changing really quickly, dramatically fast right now, and going down the path of electrification, autonomous, and all this sort of thing, and self-driving. But then they don't want to isolate those who have an amazing passion for cars, and also the classic car scene as well. So how you accommodate that and how people can still have fun with their cars is the next big thing, I think, in the auto game.
Yeah, so tell us a bit more about the electrification of cars, because I saw some amazing concept designs recently, and I'm just blown away how futuristic they are, and also how they work, how they're actually being powered and energy being conserved in the body of the car as well. It's a fascinating topic, and maybe similarly or not, yachting is also trying to advance itself in terms of being more eco-friendly and doing good, and the build process and how the build or the yacht actually propels itself. But in the car industry, what are you seeing that you can tell us?
I think the car industry is actually leading the charge, so to say, on electrification.
Can tell you're a journalist.
On electrification, and what's developing from that is now flowing into other areas of transportation. So you say the yachting industry is now moving and developing, electrification for yachts, and solar powered for yachts. The light aircraft industry is also moving towards some amazing technology coming out in the electrification of light aircraft that are still obviously experimental aircraft, but it's coming through. But it's all coming from the automotive industry. So what we're having now is that everywhere you go, you go to every major show, it's all about electrification. I was at the Shanghai Motorshow earlier this year, and there were 400 manufacturers, Chinese manufacturers, not even the ones we know, just the Chinese manufacturers, who are all building electric cars and supercars and fast cars. And that's filtering through. So even just last week, there's a big aftermarket trade show in Las Vegas every year, SEMA, where it's like the newest technology in hot rodding, effectively. That's all going electric. So even the classic cars, there's electrification coming through the classic cars. So it's definitely happening. It's on its way. I actually just recently drove the Porsche Taycan, which is the new full electric Porsche. And it was an amazing thing to drive. I mean, I'm still to be convinced, as a guy who loves cars and motoring and classic cars, the jury's out with me in terms of how you get the passion and the emotion in driving an electric car. I understand all the benefits for it, but do I actually enjoy driving it? I don't know.
It's like a hairdryer.
Yeah, it's exactly, that's it. But so we jumped into the Taycan and drove this car. And firstly, it has a 2-speed transmission, which works on the rear axle. So what that means is that it gives you the feeling of changing gears. It moves up a gear when you move, say you move onto the motorway,
Yeah.
it changes up a gear. When you come into a corner, it comes back a gear. So you feel like there's some involvement there.
Okay.
There's also, I know it's artificial sound, but there is also a sound that's being piped into the interior, so it sounds like a car as well a little bit. So
really? So it's
yeah,
like radio. Woo, I'm going to tune in now.
yeah, precisely. So there was a bit of emotion with that car. And the other thing too, and that's another really important point with electrification, is that they now have to find a noise to emit in order to the outside world, so that pedestrians don't get knocked over. And so they're actually mandating now that all electric cars will emit a noise up to about 30 kilometers per hour, and they're trying to work out what that noise should be. Should it be the sound of a car? Should it be something you can customize perhaps inside? If you want to make the car sound like a big V8 or a hot Mini or whatever, you select it as you would select the seat preferences, you know.
So this is like the perfect car for posers. If you want to pretend you've got something more powerful than you actually are in, then you just switch the button. Wow, this is awesome. Yeah. Well, maybe this is going to work. I don't know.
That's where it's all going. That's where it's all going. It'll be completely customizable, but at the end of the day, they'll all be electric vehicles.
Sure. And what's your take on the customers themselves? Like, what are their preferences nowadays? I mean, you went into the track days and how they want to have 2 cars, but is there a specific product out there that's having a bit more attention than others?
I think, yeah, I mean, definitely the people are looking at the new technologies. We're just talking about the electric vehicles, that sort of thing. But generally, buyers are becoming more discerning and more picky, if you want to put it that way, in terms of what they expect from a luxury car and the experience. You know, going back 10, 15, 20 years ago, the experience was, if I want a new Ferrari or a new Lamborghini or a new Bentley or whatever, I'll pay my money and we'll purchase the car and we'll take it away and we'll enjoy it. We might spec a few things up on it. Now it's completely immersive lifestyle experience. You no longer just go into a showroom and say, I want that car. You say, right, you sit with the consultant and you'll say, right, how are we going to build this car? I want this type of leather, I want these seats, I want this. Even where you go to the factory, you might go to the factory 6, 7 times to watch the build of your car, and you sit in the atelier and work out, okay, I want this type of stitching for the seats, I want this and that. Then with that comes invitations to events, and it opens it up. So, you know, you get the invitation, say for instance with Ferrari, you'll get the invitation to a Grand Prix or to the Pebble Beach Concourse in California, for instance. Just recently, I was lucky. I went in Maranello for it's their 90th anniversary of their race team.
Yeah.
And they flew in VIP customers. Mm-hmm. So instead of going to the Geneva Motorshow, they had their own event there, and they launched the cars just to their VIPs and a couple of media like myself. Put on a huge event. There was a 5-star meal, the whole thing, track days, because it's all on site at the factory. Drive the old classic car, and it was their customers. So this was a benefit for the customers, because they own a Ferrari or they're looking to buy another Ferrari. I know they got sales out of those few days. So for them, it worked for the company. But this is what people are now expecting. They're no longer expecting, I just want to buy the car and have it look fantastic in the garage and go for a drive in it. I want to be involved as part of a member of that family, whether it be the McLaren family or the Rolls-Royce family or the Lamborghini or Ferrari family.
Yeah.
And I want to wear the jacket. I want to have dinner with the CEO maybe once a year at a big event. This is where it's all going. It's becoming so much more of a whole lifestyle experience.
Absolutely, and there's similarities there, very much so, with the yachting community in the way that yacht brokerages or shipbuilders are targeting their clients and offering something that money can't buy. And it often involves cars, as it happens. And even at the Monaco Yacht Show, there's now a dedicated area specifically for luxury cars and toys in general, helicopters and whatnot. So it's increasingly becoming about the experience and experiential events and being part of a community that's a little bit niche or money can't buy. In fact, I've been involved in a few organizations of events on super yachts where we did crazy things like playing petanque or golf on board, because it's about that memory. It's about that moment that you're going to experience and that you can't necessarily get elsewhere. So sure, everyone can go to the Grand Prix and buy a ticket, but what's going to enhance that is going out with the drivers or speaking with them or having lunch with them and getting more face to face and personal, and that's definitely something. And
that's where too the industries are starting to come together.
Yeah.
The automotive industry is coming together with the yachting industry and the private aviation industry. We're talking before about how the automotive industry has kind of led the others in terms of development of electrification and that sort of thing. Well, the others have also led the automotive industry in terms of that lifestyle immersion that has not been familiar with the car industry before. But also now, as we're seeing, the car companies are looking for other avenues of revenue, obviously. So we're seeing companies such as Bentley, such as AMG, McLaren, who are designing interiors for yachts and aircraft and working in with them, designing speedboats. You know, AMG have been working on a couple of really nice projects, and so that gets that whole cross branding, cross promotions sort of thing, so that when you step inside the interior of a jet and you go, wow, straight away I can recognise this as being a Bentley. Or you get on board a yacht and you see, yep, there's touch points of Lexus on this. Lexus are working on some yachts as well. So, and that then crosses over and hopefully will benefits people from all sides of the camp.
Exactly. So luxury is evolving in that sense, also how companies are targeting their clientele to forever be more innovative, forever be more out there and come out with things that people can aspire to and actually be excited about, because that's the thing, right? The excitement. How do you keep that excitement if, for example, we're going into electric and things are changing in terms of the classics being the classics in a way of the past, and then now it's not as fun maybe, but it's just about bringing it all together and trying to become something else. I think the future is interesting, definitely. And also a lot of yacht designers stem from the automotive industry or school, right? Because it's so important to understand the dynamics of how everything works, and that's something that's very interesting, the synergies. I was speaking to
very much. I mean, particularly talking motorsport and Formula One, a lot of people cross back and forth into those. And I think probably the most recent example that everyone probably knows about is the chief designer at Red Bull, Adrian Newey, who is an absolute genius when it comes to designing race cars. And although he still refuses to touch a computer. And
oh wow! How can you do that?
Into his office. They've got an office that obviously Red Bull's headquarters in the UK, and I sat in his office once and realised that no, there's not even a computer on his desk. Everything is still done with a T-square and a pencil, and and he thinks it out that way. He has an assistant, a PA who handles things like emails for him, right. And then once he does it on paper with a pencil, it's then scanned into the system, and then of course they have a team of 300 designers who then work on the CAD cams and work on all that. But it all comes from his head onto a pencil and paper. But anyway, it's beautiful, and this is why I think he's so uncompromising when it comes to designing a car. The cars are designed first and engineering second, and the engineers have to work around his design. That's the way Red Bull operates. Yeah. That's why it didn't work with the previous engine manufacturer, but it's working with the new guys now. But when he took a sabbatical from racing with Red Bull, he wanted to design an America's Cup yacht. So he's working on that at the moment, I think for Britain's entry in a future America's Cup. That's going to be an Adrian Newey designed yacht.
Wow.
So there's a lot of crossing over, because you're still talking fluid dynamics and aerodynamics to make a car cut through the air as best you can. It's exactly the same principle for a yacht or for an aircraft. So there's a lot. I mean, there's Boeing were working with Jackie Stewart on his Formula One program years ago, on how they can best work on that, even down to things like coatings. You know, if you can get a slipperier coating over the outside of a tub of a race car, well, then that means that will also work on the fuselage of a jet, which might increase, you know, another 500-mile range on your jet, which means that you don't have to pay to land in a particular area. You save money. So, you know, I know guys are working on that in the motorsport field and crossing over into the aviation side as well. So yeah, it's all coming together. There's so many similarities between those industries.
That's amazing. And in terms of yachts, then, what's your favorite day boat that you've been on that had that cross reference with a automotive manufacturer?
Oh, wow.
So I remember you came down here a few years ago and we were talking about the AMG.
That's the one, I think. It was a prototype yacht, so it didn't have an interior. The interior was set up inside a villa, so we had a look at that. But it was a working prototype that was in the bay in the harbour, and it was based on an AMG Mercedes S-Class coupe, so very sleek, very nice. The powertrain I can't quite remember, but it was incredibly powerful. And I had the chance about 6 months later to sit with Lewis Hamilton for an afternoon just to talk stuff, away from racing, away from the track. It was back in the UK. And we just talked about a lot of things, and I mentioned this, and he went, and his eyes lit up. He went, "You've been on that? Oh man, I've got to talk to them. I need to get on this boat. I've seen it out there." And I said, "Yeah, that was probably me waving, you know."
Oh, you went before Lewis Hamilton.
I got the jump on him, and just for a short time there, he was asking me the questions, which is kind of cool.
See, it's all about the reverse right now. I'm interviewing you. You usually sit in that seat. Oh, that's amazing. So who's the most amazing person you've ever interviewed in the motorsport industry? Who's really made a mark on you?
Oh, wow. Okay, there's a couple out there. I'm going to show my age now. Okay, of the more modern era, definitely Lewis was a revelation, because he's a very different person at the track and away from the track. At the track, he's very switched on, focused. You know, arrogance comes through, and that's symbolic of a Formula One driver. Sebastian Vettel is very similar as well, but away from the track, very, very different. And yeah, I mean, we sat for what should have been an hour. We ended up sitting for nearly 2 hours, just talking stuff. And he's to the point where his minder said, "Look, Lewis, we need to get going. You need to have your lunch." And he goes, "Just bring the lunch over. We'll have it here. Let's keep talking. What else, you know?" So we talked about his house in the States, his collection that he keeps in the US and keeps in Monaco and keeps in the UK, and growing up with the go-karting and you know, having to tow his go-kart with his dad's Ford Fiesta to the track when you know, Nico Rosberg who was his teammate even back then when I was 7 years old. You know, he'd be turning up in his dad's Lamborghini, and he's like, Lewis is driving around in his dad's Fiesta, you know, and they're going right. You know? So yeah, that was a really cool time to spend with him on that particular afternoon. But then going way back, I mean, I started in Formula One straight out of school, very lucky, doing motorsport and covering Formula One. So my first races was in the era of the Senna and Prost era. So I got to interview and meet those guys several times. Ayrton Senna was I remember one particular time with Ayrton, I interviewed him. I was 18, and we where were we? I think we were in Italy at the time, talking about, you know, when he's going to come to Australia, because it was the final round of the championship then. And so when he came to Australia, and he was at the peak of his stardom, it was like Hamilton now. They did a press conference at a petrol station because they were sponsored by Shell back then. So they did a press conference at a petrol station, and he was absolutely swarmed with media. That's right. There was the race straight after the big incident with he and Prost in Japan. They're coming together, the whole lot. The next race was in Australia, so massive media interest. And I was literally getting trampled by media around me because I'm just this, 18-year-old kid with my notepad, and there were cameras with tripods stepping on my feet and a whole lot. And he saw me through there, and he came over and he actually grabbed me. He says, leave the kid alone. And he pulled me through the front of the crew, and he says, come with me, and you sit in the front seat of the press conference. And he said, you ask the first question.
Oh, so my goodness. That is...
He ushered me in, sat down, all the media came in, lights on, cameras on, press conference on, open up to the floor, and he goes, yes. And I went, right. So got that one in, and I thought that was just, it was, again, with Grand Prix drivers, you've got the professional side that is arrogant. That's the only word I can think of with all these guys. But then you've got away from the track, a very humane side, and still the Ayrton Senna Foundation still runs today. He kicked off this charity many years ago because he understood the weirdness of Brazil, of the extreme wealth and the extreme poverty, and he was never comfortable with that. Even though he was born into a wealthy family, and so he wanted to use his world championships to do something. So the Senna Foundation is still incredibly active through his sister Vivian. With helping underprivileged kids in Brazil. So he was a great man of two minds. And then in that same era, I met my idol, which there's only one, and there can only be one, and it was Juan Manuel Fangio. So he's a 5-time world champion. He was in his 80s at that stage.
Wow.
Didn't start racing until he was 39. And then he won 5 World Formula One championships for Maserati and Lancia afterwards. And he was my poster kid. He was, when I was a kid, and I got to meet him. It was the 500th Grand Prix of the modern era in Adelaide, and so they brought him out with the old pre-war Mercedes that he used to race. Sterling Moss was also there with his old car as well, and my boss knew them both by coincidence. So I got to spend 3 days with Fangio and Moss in Adelaide, just getting photos and signatures and talking and all sorts of things. So they're my 3 idols for sure.
Oh my goodness, that's so cool. And going back to that, how they're approachable and accessible, it's the same in Monaco. That's where a few live and practice. And it's just really cool that you can sit down and have a normal conversation with them, and they're just normal human beings at the end of the day. And then when it comes track day, last year and the year before, I went to the F1, and I was a journalist, and it's just completely different. Like, you see the same person, and they're so in their minds, and can't get to them. It's work. It's so work.
It's exactly the same here. I mean, Dubai is very similar, where a lot of people, a lot of big names, athletes and stars stay here. Roger Federer has a place probably 15 minutes from here that he stays at. Fernando Alonso, I went go-karting with him a few times here. He lived here for 3 years. I'm not sure if he still has the place now. But I literally saw him in the supermarket, and I'm getting some bits, and we go-karting in rental carts. Just he got the normal suit and the lid from the shop. No one knew it was Fernando Alonso. And he did a 24-hour race with us about 4 or 5 years ago. He still comes back probably 2-3 times a year. We see him on the cycle track out there as well, and away from the track, away from everything else. And it's and because Dubai is just full of so many different cultures and people, and it's not as focused as Europe is on motorsport. So you can get these kind of people out here who just live a fairly normal lifestyle.
That's for sure. So given that it's Sunday, and I know that you're so busy, I don't want to take up more of your time. That was really, really great. Thank you so much, Damien, for all those insights. And the last question that I'm going to ask you, because I ask all my guests, is your personal definition of luxury.
Okay.
Getting sleep.
Yeah, so that kind of ties back. My definition of luxury would have to be sleep and time. I think the material stuff comes and goes, and we're very fortunate in this game where, whilst we might not have the means to own everything, we get to play with them and hand them back. So you get to experience a lot of the so-called luxury lifestyle. But the greatest luxury definitely is, especially as someone who runs his own business and works whatever hours it takes to get the job done, as you'd understand, is time, and having time with your family and just having time to sit back. That is the greatest luxury of all.
Wow, fantastic. Well, keep on immersing us with amazing content that you do, and we'll be all following you. You've got your Instagram account, you're on LinkedIn, and do you have your own blog maybe that we can follow your track?
You know what? I haven't done that yet. It's been on my to-do list for a couple of years now. I think blogs will be out of fashion by the time I get to doing it, but no, at the moment it's just it's the Instagram, it's the LinkedIn, it's the Facebook, it's where people can find me, and the local media outlets here. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll keep track on that. And I'm once again so grateful for you coming on. I hope you have a very successful next few weeks and not super busy. So good luck, good luck, good luck.
No problem. It's been an absolute pleasure. Off now to do the commentate for the Brazilian Grand Prix, the second last race of the year. So really looking forward to that.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I hope to see you at Monaco Grand Prix next year for sure.
Coming back.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for watching Yachting International Radio. This is Luxury with Natalia. Keep tuning in for more episodes coming very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye. Bye, Damien.
See you later.